4 of Visuals at Work Bootcamp. Um, it's fabulous to have that fourth day and still feel that connected already with 6 days going forward. Today, let's just start a little bit of the social media thing. We've been getting a lot of posts in social media with hashtag visuals at work. Let's keep doing it. We are also reposting your works in our page so it gets visibility. And if in case you're on Facebook and Instagram, also tag us at visuals at work bootcamp. The difference between the hashtag and the tagging is the word bootcamp. If you put visuals at work, it's a hashtag. Visuals at work bootcamp is actually tagging us. So do both as much as you could, which is better. That's about the social media. And a little bit of ground rules. Now you already know the drill already, but still just sit in your comfortable place, whichever you see fit. And then headset is the best way. Have a notepad and pen to scribble your thoughts. I mean, today you're going to have a lot of templates set in, so just start writing it down, noting it down. We will be muting you all, but if you want to ask any question, you can always raise your hand. That way we will unmute you and get the questions asked. This is about today, and the person we have today is Tim Hamons. And to say something about Tim, I know Tim for a very long time. He's a visual facilitator, speaker, trainer. He helps teams and individuals to tell stories, figure out things with markers in their hand. Over past 8 years, he's been doing this. And he has done our own models in over 1,000 business meetings, supporting groups to navigate change, solve problems, and sell ideas. As a speaker, he uses live sketching in his presentations to frame key messages and build interactive storytelling. Together with his wife, Irene, they set up Art of Awakening in 2011. Smita, could you just mute yourself? Thank you. So together with his wife, Irene, they set up Art of Awakening in 2011, bringing creativity and positive changes in meeting rooms and classroom using visual tools as such. He's also one of the co-editor to launch in 2019 the book, The World of Visual Facilitation, which he will also be introducing in this. And today, Tim will be talking about storytelling templates for trainers, mostly something that a little bit of what we've seen before in terms of templates and all that. And he will be having his own view, and he will be giving his own thought process to it. So with no further ado, I'll just stop sharing my screen and I will introduce you to Tim. Just a minute. Hi, Tim. Hello. Hello.
You have to put the...
Yeah. Tim, you're in mute. You might have to just unmute yourself.
Do it again.
Yeah. Hi. Thank
you. How's that?
Tim.
Good?
Good. Yeah. Awesome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. How many of you have, going into trainer mode. How many of you have joined some of the other sessions and received great value so far? This is number 4. See a show of hands. Have you learned something? Have you been inspired?
All of you. Okay.
Very good. I just want to acknowledge Piyush and Agalia and Natasha for setting this up. It's quite a, I think it's quite a groundbreaking platform because it's, well, I know Agalia for a while through facilitation, and then Natasha through the visual space. I know Piyush not as long, but now I know how he likes to accelerate things through his digital marketing experience. And in a couple of days, he's going to be talking and teaching about digital marketing, how to accelerate your ideas. So visuals help with all of these things, helps you with thinking, helps you with clarifying, helps you accelerate your ideas and your initiatives. So I just want to acknowledge you guys for being quite groundbreaking in that space. I guess I'm attracted to things that go forward. And just as a quick introduction to myself is, some of you might have seen this book. It's not small, it's big. It's over 600 pages, 54 co-authors of some of the best visual practitioners and visual thinkers in this industry. And I decided to be one of the co-editors for this book. Being in Singapore, I wanted to give Asia practitioners a voice. Most of the literature, and last night we had an excellent presentation from Willem and Brand. She's in the Netherlands. Most of this work comes from Europe and North America. So it has a certain focus, and the case studies are of a certain nature. And it's great. I wanted to give Asia a voice and create more diversity. So also, just to show off this book, it's also an acknowledgement of how this industry is growing, both as clients want to see visual practitioners in a room, and practitioners see the value in learning visual tools to create engagement, create a connection. So I acknowledge you for being here. You're in a good room. The industry and in this work is growing. So I'm just going to share a little bit of who I am, our company, and myself, just for a few months, just to kind of get the context. I love visual thinking. I've been drawing all my life since I'm a kid. There's myself. We do visual and virtual coaching and workshops. We like to do speaking. Yes?
Tim, we cannot see your screen.
Oh, you can't see it.
Agalya, can you?
Can you see
One
it?
second. Yeah, we can't see your screen, Tim. It's quite blank right now. We saw it like this, but when you played it, it went blank.
Play again.
Okay. Let me try again.
Yeah.
How's that?
Blank.
Still it is blank.
Showing it's blank.
Yeah.
Oh.
You may need to go back to sharing and then share only the full screen view.
Okay. Thanks, Rosika.
Even this is all right. I mean, if things don't work, even this is all right.
Yeah, we could see it.
Can you see it now?
No.
No.
How do you see that?
No.
No.
Blank.
One moment. We'll just do it.
We can see it if it's in the night. Right now, we can see it. We don't see it when you put it on
The play,
on
Play.
on the play.
Okay.
So it's the switch which doesn't work. So if you just slide to the other, we could probably.
Or what you can swap
Yeah,
the
this
screens.
looks good. This looks good.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Got it.
You see
Yes,
it
we
now?
got it. Yeah.
Okay, great. I hope it works the rest of the time. So we're all learning to play in this new space of virtual connection. So, and I think in this way, we're learning to broaden our application of visual tools and virtual tools by growing how we can do it in the platform. So anyway, that's me. We do visual facilitation for corporate groups and strategy work, and we do workshops and coaching. I've been training myself to be more of a speaker as well. And again, the context for that and the initiative for that is similar to this. Is how do we grow the impact of this work, the understanding of this work as a business tool. So that's a little about me. Here's a few snapshots of our family. You can see we're a very creative family. That's on the top left is my wife drawing a
Tim,
marker in her hand,
Tim,
one hand.
Sorry, I do not see your next slide of your family.
Oh, you don't see the next slide. Oh gosh. What's this?
Yes, now we see it.
Yeah.
Now you see it, but is it full screen?
No.
No, it is not full screen.
You don't see it as a full screen.
But I
can't go
really
full
think this
screen.
is also okay, Tim. Like we can really see your pictures nicely. So you can go back to that
Okay.
mode as well.
Now it is blank actually.
Go back to this mode. Is that okay?
Yeah, this mode is good. Yes, please. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, there's our family. So, you know, my son loves the drawing on the floor, but he uses whiteboard markers. And there's my wife with a marker in her hand, our son in his hand, and here we are painting something together. But here's just Art of Awakening. Since 2011, we work with companies to help them tell their stories through visual tools, through strategy workshops, change workshops, communication workshops, leadership events, help them to find a narrative. Sometimes that's around change, sometimes that's around innovation. And we found that the best way to do that is through visual tools, drawing, getting them to draw, or working with something called visual templates. So, and here's just a snapshot of our signature program, the Visual Facilitation Lab, 2-day program, working with visual tools, getting people to overcome that bias for document and word, right? To get more empowered to work with visuals and develop that language and use visual tools. And so visual templates are a part of that. We use visual templates for solving client problems, for designing a solution together with a client, for telling their story. So I'm going to stop that for a moment and come back here. Can you see that? Our agenda for today, an introduction to visual templates, which is what we've got. Visual templates in business, visual templates for personal use. Then it's your turn to get a marker in your hand and create something. And then some Q&A. So that's our agenda for today. And what I have here is behind me. Can you see that clearly? I hope so. Can you see that clearly? When you look at these images, what do you notice? Maybe just type in the chat box. What do you notice about some of these images? They're blue, black text.
Is it possible that you can pick those paper out and then show it nearer to the camera? Is it? Yeah,
I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
What do you notice about some of these? So some of us would be
Bridging the gap.
Visual. Yeah. So yeah, great. So maybe we could just chat in the answer. Some of us may be experienced facilitators, and some of us may be experienced visual practitioners, and some might be new to this and just curious to learn and try new things. Bridging the gap, yeah, there's a story there. What else do you notice?
Strategy.
Roadmap, visioning, journey, landscape elements. Great. Strategy, use of colors. So you notice is the drawing very complicated? No, it's quite simple. And there's lots of blank space, all right? Here's another simple example on my board behind, right? So there's lots of blank space. So a couple things around the use of visual templates is this thing we call space, blank space. When a group walks into the room and they see something like this on the wall, your brain doesn't like it. It gets unhappy. Why? Because something is missing. Our brain wants to fill in the gaps. It wants to close those gaps. So that's the engagement part. That's perhaps the most important part of a visual template, a visual tool, is empty space. You'll also notice there are some simple lines and simple visual elements. There are some words, right? Not very much, either one word or a short phrase or a question. And there are pictures. So the pictures is what I want to focus on, because that's what's telling the story. This is what makes up a visual template. Okay, so a simple introduction, empty space, lines, words, pictures, and story. And so there's a bit more to it, but I'm just going to give you this as an example. And you have a few quick picks here.
Can we also see the first one, Tim?
The first one?
Yeah.
Yes, this one I'll show a little bit later. This is for personal goal setting. You notice it's the metaphor of a balloon launch. If you've ever been to a balloon launch, it's quite an inspiring event. You might have seen them in Europe, Piyush.
Yeah, yes.
They're quite popular in Europe. Okay. So we're doing this from home here. Okay, great. So when we talk about a visual template, I'm going to introduce a little bit of the 5 W's and the 1H. First of all is, when would you use a visual template? If you're a facilitator, if you're a trainer, first of all, what is it? What is a visual template? My definition that works for me, it's a structured conversation. It's a way to create a structured conversation and to inspire a certain result. So when would you use it? You could use it during a breakout session when you want groups to work on a particular question. Maybe it's the same question for a number of breakout groups. They come back and present. You get the diversity in the group. It could be for personal reflection at the end of the day. What are your takeaways, goal settings, and a number of other reasons. So how do you do it? I'm going to set up this simple compass as a metaphor. I hope you can see all that. And we'll take a note from Simon Sinek. So also, while I'm doing this, I invite you to draw along because you're learning through that. I'm creating a visual template as a form of instruction and demonstration. So start with why. So the question you would ask as a client is, why would you want a visual template? What's the purpose of that? How is it going to help serve us? What is the question that we want to work on? What's the context, right? And then number two is you strategize, you plan. What are we going to do with that? Who are the people in the room? What's the profile? What's the right kind of questions? What's the right kind of visual to ask around that? And then you want to create some story. Story is the fun part. That's where you get into the metaphors. And we got a few examples here, right? That's where you're working with metaphor to talk about culture, mindset, values. Maybe you're having a launch event, so you want to have a rocket launch, or maybe the metaphor is, a journey. We're going to a particular destination. There's a rocket launch. So all these are simple visual elements that help to tell the story. Okay, and just to close this off is then the structure. What's the structure to your visual template? Right? What's the structure? What are the sizes of different elements? Are there arrows? Are there numbers to help to bring a structure to it, a sequence and a purpose? That's number 4. And number 5 is style, which includes things like the size, how's it going to fit in the room, and so on. But what I want to take a little bit more of our time today is the fun part, the exciting part. This is putting the thing together. So it's really important, this conversation with a client is, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? Who's in the room? What's the question that you want them to achieve? And while I'm with the client, what I'll do is I'll have this with me. It's a clip and a few markers, and start sketching these ideas out and sketching out visual metaphors, sketching out the questions, the structure, the style. When I'm doing this, this is an adaptation from the Agile reflection. So you'll notice how many sections are there. There's only 4, right? Usually 4 or 5 to 7 is the number of spaces or reflection that you might have in a visual template. Is everyone okay with this so far? So here's the compass. So I chose to tell the story of how to create a visual metaphor and a visual template through the metaphor of the compass. Why? What does the compass give us? Direction, shows us where to go, then we can make adjustments from there, and strategies and choices. Is that good? Great. So the context for today is to look at this. What is the metaphor? What is the story? And because a metaphor will frame your ideas, right? And then I'm going to show you how I use this and some of this in training and facilitation. Does that sound good? Great. So let me show you. If you have a question, go ahead and write a question in there, but pre-frame it with the Q, right? A Q, so we know that it's a question, and we have some time for questions.
So there are certain questions, and do you want me to read it right now? There are certain questions already.
We can. That's fine.
Okay.
And then I'll go into some visual templates in business. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are just asking, do you also have some templates for A3 problem solvings? And the other one is, do you find it more useful to use metaphor familiar for them or unfamiliar to help them? Two questions.
Is it more useful to use metaphors that are familiar to them than something that is unfamiliar?
Yeah. To help them.
Well, I mean, so it has to have some degree of familiarity. That's what a metaphor is. It's using, the light bulb is a metaphor for creativity or bright ideas. So I understand what a light bulb does, and that helps me to understand what creativity does. But if it's an image that we don't have any understanding, it may not work. So, but you can stretch that. You can have, for example, this is where you go into creating metaphors like is the light bulb growing in a tree, or is the light bulb growing in a garden to symbolize, the creative process of taking care of ideas. And that could be an idea for a visual story and a metaphor. Hope that answers your question. So some degree of familiarity, but also you don't want to just have you want to try to move away from the cliches a little bit so that it's engaging. And this is why this is important, that conversation with the client. Maybe in that conversation, of course, you listen. Is there something that they're saying, where it's like, we're like pushing a boulder up the hill, or, they might say the elephant in the room. There's a metaphor right there. So you sketch that out, you make a note, you show them on a small card or on your sketchboard. They get excited because now you're co-creating something, results with them. Great. Is there another question? Or
yes, we have one more question. Can you explain more about style and strategies? So the two parts, style and strategies. If you can give any more examples too.
Okay. Yeah. So who is in the room? What's their learning profile? Is it a very senior group? Of course, then you would create, then that question of what's the type of image, metaphor, the type of communication that we want is going to be different than if it's with a junior group that's maybe in sales type of team. They would have a different energy, a different personality, and they would respond to different things. They would have different needs, right? So understanding who's in the room and what are they there to achieve, and then also knowing the agenda. Where in the day would this activity be that you want to have a visual agenda for? Is it at the beginning of the day to harvest like a check-in process, or what's your question for today? You can have that. Is it context setting? Is it at the end of the day? It's a checkout, a takeaway. Is it in the middle of the day to harvest insights, or midway point at the end of a multiple day event? Is it at the end of that? So understanding where it fits in the agenda and how it plays with, whatever else is going on in the room. What happened just before that? What happened before, after that? Because the key in facilitation is contrast. That's a good word to remember. As a facilitator, contrast. You don't want to have everything in your room is visual either, right? As much as you love it, as much as I love it, you can't have everything.
Yeah.
I mean, because people will just be too much. You have a quiet activity, then you have an energetic activity, you have a drawing activity, then you have a reflective thinking or writing. So as facilitators, to switch things up and create more contrast. So strategy and style, that's more like how you put it together. Arrows create connections to things. How do you visualize it? I like to make a template that's in a lighter, the drawing is in a lighter style, the image is in a lighter color, and the words are darker. so the words pop out. The words for me are always more important. The words or questions. And then how do you, is there some bullets or numbers to help show that sequence and arrangement? And also the size, what's the right size?
Yeah.
Usually if it's for personal reflection, A3 or A4 could be good. If it's for a group, then you're talking, flip chart size, A1. You could have 1.2 by 2.4 meters, the size of a wall, right? That's for harvesting wall. And I'll show you some examples of that in a while.
Right.
That's part of this.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. We do have questions, but I think you can continue with your topic, and we'll take the questions later. Yeah.
Okay, good.
We do have one more question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see the slide now?
No, I can't.
No, sorry. Okay. I just got to make sure we're doing it the right way here. Can you see that? You see my whole desktop, right?
Yes, I can.
So
see your
some
desktop.
visual, I hope you can see it clearly enough. I'm just going to show some of our, there's templates that you design for a client, and there are some that are kind of go-to or standard templates. I was going to show you some of our more standard templates, which is this one, the strategic planning or visioning template. We call it a future agenda. It's simply a bridge. And the key to this is you can see on there, there's 3 places for, well, there's 6 places for you to respond to. But the main part of that is where we are now, our current state, where we want to go in the future, our desired state, and then how are we going to get there? That's the bridge, strategies, values, enablers. And of course, there's also things in the way, gaps, right? There's big ideas that we want to park up above us, and then our emerging vision in the future. So, I mean, the key to this, again, is just creating a storyline that makes sense for them. I've used this template many times, and it's just some adaptation. We will change some of the imagery. We'll include the client's, imagery and messaging in there. This could be added into like a road mapping or a goal setting type of process. Okay, so I'm just going to show you these first, and I'm going to show you a few how you put them together. This is the the agile retrospective, and it's an effective metaphor. And now these are on the Miro board. You had a demonstration of that last night by Willemins, the Miro board. Yeah. And here's a simple one for decision making and planning. So the key to this is you can create these things using the simple drawing and simple format, right, of visual imagery. Stop, start, continue. And the iceberg is good for looking at what's the mental models, as Galia mentioned, right? Our thinking, what's our culture, mindset, and so on. So how do you put some of these together? I hope you can see that if it's too small. Inside your facilitator's environment, you might have a few things going on, but you see some of the different charts that we have there, and some of them, the visual templates, empathy map, opportunity matrix, market updates. For each of those kind of things, you can create a visual template or a visual story map for capturing and harvesting conversations in the room, right? And here's an example of that. An empathy map, it's just the classic empathy map. What do we see? What do we feel? What do we hear, say, think, and do, right? Then you harvest that with Post-its to capture the key outputs on it. And here's an example where you can preempt client decisions or choices by creating some, what do we call these? This client was having a hard time pinning down the narrative for their change process. So we gave them a few angles in which to look at it. Is it or it was around streamlining. How do we reduce and get clear on what we need to focus on? So we created imagery to reflect that, right? How do we go from big chunks to funnel it down and so on, right? Chasing too many initiatives to prioritizing, I think, celebrating on the left side. Okay, so here's another example of using some of these visual templates as a creative vision and team exercise. So in the conversation with the client, they're looking for who we are as a team. What do we do? And the bigger objective is why are we here? What's our purpose? What's our vision? And so we designed a really simple template of that journey map and that sort of Venn diagram, and starting with what are some of the personal capabilities that I need? What are some of our milestones? Who we are, what we do, who do we serve, and our vision. So here's the groups as they're working on it, some of their group work, simple template like this, A1 flip chart size. And here's the bigger harvest, as I mentioned, capturing all those things up there in Post-its. Here's a bit of consolidation with that to the next level to clarify. And this is what they did at the end with that. They put it onto a t-shirt. That's why I like this example, because it's kind of a little more fun as a team exercise. They loved the output and the process so much that they captured it into an image as a t-shirt there. And here's some of the work, harvesting that, their insights, visual insights with Post-its, simple icons, imagery, get them drawing a little bit, working on the templates with the markers, you see some of the icon cards there from Bicablo, of course, Post-its and great markers that you'll have in the room for them. And there's how it looks together, some of their group work, and then the bigger mapping on the right. Okay, maybe I'll show one more quick case study, then we're going to get you to draw a little bit. So here again, the context is from current to future. Where I am now, where am I going in the future? Remember that future agenda map, right? So here we created a large, again, 1.2 by 2.4 meter board for conversations with senior leaders, and to capture that.
Just a minute. If you can just go to Zoom and make it 100%, we will have a clear view of this, I think. It's very small right now. The left side of the screen where there is Zoom, if you can put it 100%, so the screen gets bigger. This is pretty.
Make it bigger, okay. Okay. How do I do that?
There is a Zoom that I see.
Left side top, left side
You
corner.
stop sharing. You need to stop sharing first, right?
No, on the top left, on the top left, you have Zoom, which is 100%.
75%. If you make it 100%, and someone also said if you click the format button on the right, it will get close, so we'll have a bigger picture. So there are 2 suggestions that's come to see that is screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I zoom on the.
As an icon, it is already showing. Yeah.
Yeah, same there. There, where Raj put 75%. If you make it 100%. Yes, exactly. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Maybe
I prefer.
Maybe even more. 150 might solve.
Oh yeah, make it a little bigger. Okay, Ken. Is that better?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So this is an adaptation of this simple template for design thinking called the empathy map, which is, for capturing insights. What do I see, think, hear, say, do? And by putting it into, at where we are now, current state, where we're going in the future, and it's just a series of dialogues with these leaders. Where are we now? Our current state for employee and customer. And then dialogue 2 is the future of the employee and customer. And you see some of the progress here, capturing that, a few Post-its, put it there, number 1. And number 2, doing some visual synthesis or organizing of those inputs into the image. And then number 3 is like that, right? Series of Post-its, and finally drawing it on the board. You can't see if I press play, huh? There's a little video that's embedded in there. But if I press play, we don't see it. Okay, great. And there's how the series. So you can create, so this is again the understanding the client, what are they doing? How do we work with them? And we wanted to create these larger sizes because this was going to be used, this was to be used in a gallery walk with this group of senior leaders to go through each of the distinctions and the conversations, and then to harvest that about what do we do now? What's the strategy and next steps? Okay. So are there any questions about that? I have some more that I will show you, but these will be more personal and individual goal setting and individual templates. Is there some questions that come?
Agalya, your mic is muted.
Oh.
Okay, now can you hear me? Yeah. So
Yes.
there is one person who has asked, how do you introduce a visual framework so folks don't look at it as just something artistic but useful for discussion, especially for senior stakeholders if you have to sell it? So that is one key question that's come.
Good. How do you introduce it? Great question. So what I do is I will bring things like this to the meeting. And this is a series of visual tools and formats. These are templates, ideas, and there's more. I just have these here handy now. And as I'm working through a conversation on the agenda, let's say, you know, it's a group of leaders, they want to come up with what's their, you know, some of their 3 key initiatives for the coming year. And so in that conversation, I'm mapping out what they need, what's going on, what's their objectives, and then I lay these down on the table and say, here's what we could do at the beginning, right? We can have a check-in conversation, and we could introduce a profiling tool to support your leaders. I make a storyboard, so they're already seeing a visual tool that's used in designing their solution, and then I'll have specific, you know, tools here. Let's say we have a visual history about where we've come so far, so that everyone can see some of the learning points, and some of the newer leaders can become on board. So, and I put those down and it's on the table, and we're designing the agenda together. So in that first conversation, the top people, they're seeing the value of doing this by the tools you have. I'm also sketching it out live with them, either on my on the whiteboard, if that's available, and if it's a large group, or on my paper in front of them. So they're seeing the value of that. And all I'm doing is putting it together. What's your question, challenge, where you are now? Where do you want to go in the future? Some ideas about how we get there. And then I just start sketching metaphors. So when I teach this work, I say there's 3 ways to create engagement with visuals in your room. Number 1 is to draw live. You had some good examples of that yesterday with Williman. Draw live. Number 2 is to put a marker in their hands, which is give them an activity. And number 3 is this, have a visual template. So those are 3 simple ways. So does that answer your question?
I think so it did, unless until they say no. Yes, it does. And another question that came up is, can you use these, whatever you did with the Post-it in Miro? Because now considering the situation, can the same thing be used in Miro as well?
Yeah, we can. In fact, we did this with our team a few weeks ago about, you know, what's going on in the context of our industry, visual facilitation. And I wasn't able to get the slide in time and to put it into the meeting today. But it's the wave, right? What's the wave? What's at the crest of the wave? What is diminishing and what is upcoming? And so you just use Post-its to harvest each of those different conversations. Maybe I can show it up in a PowerPoint in a while, but I need a minute to look for that. Yeah. So certainly, yeah. And if you have, I think with a free version, you don't have the ability to draw your own templates, but I think with the paid version, you can draw and add and customize your own templates. Maybe someone
Okay,
knows
I think
more
that
about
answers
that.
the question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'd love to do some simple drawing. So I want to show you, there's a few other templates that I'll show you for goal setting and for personal work. Let me just show that. And then I'm going to give you a demo on how to do a drawing for selling an idea or presenting an idea. Hope everyone's okay with this so far. Sometimes people say I give too much information and it's kind of, but here's an example how you can use, some of these templates in a group context, group facilitation. Multiple groups are in a breakout working on the same template, or maybe there's question 1, question 2, question 3, 4, etc. Right? They come back and they present. You can have a visual practitioner. Many of the people in this room are that. Agalia, Natasha, Piyush, right? While they're presenting back, then you're scribing out those outputs and creating a consolidated harvest of that story. Groups can discuss and review, then you can do the clustering, prioritizing. And so you can use templates in a number of different ways throughout that process. Okay, here's some other examples. Career self-leadership. Again, what's the story in there? The story is the river. You're navigating the river, you're learning to be proactive, autonomous, build relationships, ride the rapids to become resilient. And here's a good example that we used with coaching. We did some workshops for the ICF group coaching, and we gave them this metaphor of the garden. And what you see there is all of the labels and the words: energy, community, rest, variety, great tools, care and attention. But we took all those titles and words out and we let them create their own story around that. What does coaching mean to you? How does this coaching garden make sense to you? What is your community? What are the skills and training that you put in? So this is from a conversation with a client. We designed this as a tool, and then this is a tool that we introduced for the coaches to use with their clients. So there's different ways to use these things. So that's another way. Okay. Let me pause with that because that's a bunch of other stuff. And I'll just do a little bit of a demo. Everyone okay so far? So here's an example of using visual templates and interactive visual tools. Here, I'll give you an example of using a visual metaphor and framing it as a template that you can then use it for telling a story, for delivering a piece of content, right? How many of you are trainers in here? Show of hands, right? So, you're delivering a piece of content, and then you want to invite the group to reflect on that. So I'll just share something that I've learned. And in the context of teaching creativity, I've learned an analogy for creativity is creative soup from Christine Amabile, a Harvard University professor. And so I've adapted that rather, and called it creativity curry. Okay, who loves curry? Who loves making it? Who loves eating it? Great. I love curry. Japanese curry, Indian curry, Thai curry, green curry. So you could ask a question: what are some of the core ingredients that needs to go into a curry? And you could say fish, vegetables, chicken, and so on. So I'm just drawing a few things there. Those are your core ingredients. And you can tailor that and, you know, choose that to make your most delicious curry based on your mother's recipe and so on, right? But you're not going to get a very good curry if you just put in fish, chicken, vegetable. What does this curry need? It needs some, I need a green marker. It needs what is all that? That's the spices, right? The spices bring out the best of your core ingredients. Now, let me pause for a moment and say, in the context of creativity, the core ingredients could also be your core skills. What are your core skills as a trainer? Are you great with HR and you're great with profiling, or are you experienced with leaders and understanding strategy? You know, do you have also the soft skills of listening and so on? So what are your core skills, right? That's what brings out your creativity. Malcolm Gladwell says 10,000 hours to become a master at something. What is your core skills? And what brings out the best of core skills? The spice brings out the best of the chicken and the fish. What brings out the best of your core skills are creativity skills. What's sometimes known as think out of the box, right? Expand your thinking. And what are some great creativity skills? Brainstorming, 20 idea method, association, mind mapping, visual thinking, certainly. Sometimes it's just taking a break and letting that idea cook in your brain a little bit, incubate, right? So some creativity skills brings out the best of your core skills in engineering or HR or teams or so on. So that's core skills, creativity skills. But what does this curry need? It needs what is that? Passion. And I like to think of a definition of passion as what drives you. So what have I just done here? I've just created an interactive story for you as a participant. And this could be, you know, Agalia showed the ladder of inference, right? That could be the model that you're drawing. And you add story around it, you add imagery, you ask questions. So you're creating engagement around your idea here, whatever that idea is, and whatever it is that you're teaching, training. If you're in sales and marketing, this could be your solution that you're articulating to the client to give them a break from the PowerPoint. But the reason I show this, and the thing I want you to look at is this, and I've also got it in the slide, but can you see that? This is an adaptation of what I just drew on the flip chart, and it's designed as a template. So it's, you know, 3 key buckets. What are your core skills? And there's a space for that. This was actually designed some time ago, so I think it's a little bit too many words. What are my creative thinking skills, right? That bring out the best of my core skills. And perhaps most importantly, why do I do it? What am I passionate about? So, and then, so there's space here for you to reflect, write in your own words. What am I good at? What am I working on to make my skills better? What do I want to learn and do better? And why do I do it? What am I passionate about? So I could say for myself, core skills, creative thinking, visual communication, training, facilitation. You know, I'm still learning, as all of us, about technology and how to work with leadership groups and so on. Plenty of creativity skills. My passion is to help you to reframe your relationship with your creativity and to get groups to have more effective and meaningful meetings. So you can tell story, you can tell your story, you can create a template around that to frame your thinking and ideas. So that's just a demonstration of some of the things you can do with all of this stuff. Any questions?
Yeah,
We're going to draw in a
People
minute.
can
Yeah.
post questions if you want. He can just take it right now, if there is any.
Yeah.
There is. Do you have favorite TED Talks doing this for a large group? Would love to see them. Do you have any? Oh, this is to someone else. I'm sorry. Okay. There is one question which has already been asked. Let me just talk about.
Okay.
Do you also have some templates for A3 problem solving? Only for problem solving. If you have any A3 templates, if you can share it with us. Or
A template for problem solving, specifically problem solving. So we could create one. We could do a demonstration on one. Would you like to do that? So I'll show you how we do it. Again, starting with the why, right? Understanding the group. Why are we here? What are we hoping to achieve? Coming up with a story around it. And when we teach this to groups, we have them work with, this is a great preliminary tool. The compass points for your template. Write a post-it. Who's the group? What do they hope to achieve? Where is this fitting in the agenda? Start to sketch some story elements up here. And then, then start to sketch out some ideas for the template and so on. So you begin brainstorming on templates, key questions, and then you can arrange those onto your board and start to get a sense of the structure and the flow and the relation, and you clarify the use of that. So you want to do a demo for its problem solving?
sure.
I hope you can see it. It could be personal problem solving. It could be a corporate problem solving. So let's just explore some visual frameworks. So what is that image? That's the mirror, right? This would be more looking at personal reflection, right? What does the mirror, I'm creating this a little bit on the go. What do I see in the mirror? The mirror is feedback, it's objective. What do I dislike? What do I like? And what's possible in the future? Just for example, if I want to change. I'm just creating something as an example for more for personal reflection on problem solving. What is the problem? Right? Which is, maybe it's something being objective with what I see in the mirror. What I see, what's possible. What do I want to change? What do I keep? Anyway, just creating a exploratory template using the metaphor of the mirror for self-reflection, and then what are some possible steps towards that. Another template for problem solving could be SWOT, right? Just looking at it, what do I see in there? What is one that we did before? A visual SWOT. I think we did this once. Is everyone able to see? Yeah. So I'm just using the example of, this would be the threat, actually, the lightning, right? So you just sort of begin playing with some of our traditional learning tools and structures.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's an example of like using something that we already are familiar with, SWOT,
Right.
making it into a template, giving it a visual structure and a little bit of a story. This is the balloon, it's getting weighed down by the bags. The threat is imposing weather. Strength is, you know, the wind that's blowing it forward or the hot air. And so an opportunity could be, you know, where it's going forward, the trajectory.
I think
we turned it off. Okay, great.
I think that is totally awesome. I mean, we totally got it.
Another question?
From the personal point of view, yeah, there are like a couple of questions.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, just checking the other
No
comments.
problem. Just that if you're ready, I can just go for the rest of the questions. Can I? Or can we go for certain few other questions? One is when you're live scribing a conversation, how do you manage to space out all elements? How can you anticipate the placements and how many elements under the topic? Like they are pretty specific in what they're asking. Space out all elements and how the placements of the elements under each topic. Is there any hard and fast rule for this, Tim? Because
how do you sketch out all the elements to make it fit?
Yes.
So again, a good preliminary step is write down all of your questions on a sticky note, or, you know, here's my 4 sort of topics here or questions. I just do this really simply, but if I have these 4, I put them down and then I can move it around and get a sense of what's there. I can sketch some story elements or visual elements, the metaphors and icons. And then I begin to piece it together and then take it from there and make a simple sketch, right, on an A4 paper. And I can show that to the client, send them an email, attach a simple sketch, say, what do you think? You know, it has your questions, it has this ideas that we had discussed. It has, you know, if you tailor it to the client's imagery or story or brand elements, they will love it. So you can consider that. But so how do you piece it together? Is just sketching it, Post-its first, map it out on a page, and then sketching it. So, you know, and again, if one question is more important than another, let's say, you know, goals and visioning is we want to spend a longer time on that, I will make this twice as big, right? To reflect the importance and the value of that piece. And then the others might be smaller. Or maybe one group is working on one part, right? And group 2 is working on this, and group 3 and group 4. So you could give each group this and then give one group just that, right? Just zoom into it. And another tool to help with your use of these is give the groups an instruction sheet where you show the template and then you show them a finished version of that, or you just add some sample content in here so they know how to use it, and give them a step-by-step guide. Question 1, here's what we're looking for. Question 2, da, 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 da. And invite them to draw and add elements to it.
Positively, I just take it as it is not element specific, but it is just problem and situation specific. Like you might have to adapt it accordingly and then work on it, I feel. Like,
Yes.
Kind of if I can put it in answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
You try to make it, so it depends on what's the question that they're working on, and how specific and targeted then that question will be, and then you develop the structure around that.
Perfect.
I have a question, Agalya.
So good?
Can I
Yeah.
pitch?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So Tim, because I also do storytellings, and when I have to
Great.
draft some, I face, so that is one thing which I face difficulty with, or I have to put my brain more in it, is the information flow, So when you are making some story, there's always a start point and an end point. Now the ones which you have shown till now moves like a square, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the green one which I see behind you on the left hand side has a movement. See, the welcome is on the top, so it is moving from top to bottom, or now I see, so it's moving from left to right. So in various storyboards, the information moves sometimes from top to bottom, from bottom to top, from one diagonal to that diagonal, or in a square or in a mandala format. So what is the right stage to think that what kind of information, how the information will flow in my storyboard? What is the right time to think about it and then draft?
To think about the flow?
Yeah.
So what I do is I draw it and then I share with the client, and I ask them to show it around to a few people and get the feedback. Does this make sense to you? Does it flow? Does this make sense to go from question? Is this the right sequence of questions? Is this number 2, or should that be, change the position of that? And we have a conversation, and then I'll sketch that out within that modification. But when I'm designing something, you just give it numbers. Numbers and arrows can help. I'm just improvising here on these numbers and arrows. But location, how close it's something, then that would make sense for this to go from here to here, right? I wouldn't go from there to there. That wouldn't make sense. And intuitively, we know that, right? So this is going kind of counterclockwise. I could also start here and go, from number 1 to number 2. But for me, it's more natural because these two are closer together. That's how I do it, because it's kind of a visual, structuring it visually.
Yeah, to me, my childhood comic books help me. So because I used to read it, and then they have all kinds of stories, it really gives you a kind of idea of how the information flows. Thank you, Tim, for taking this up.
Yes, story, comic books. Do you remember paint by numbers, right? You have the outline, then you paint in, this is red, this is blue, and so on. It's kind of like that. It's guiding you to fill it up, and it's inviting you. Again, the key to this is the image and the story, but the blank space. And the simplest template, I'll show you a couple more examples, but the simplest template is just a blank space. Here's an example of a template for harvesting. On day 2 of our visual facilitation lab, we asked people to reflect on a time when they have seen a visual tool help to catalyze a team or an organization. And they harvest this with Post-its, with pictures and so on. But the metaphor here is this, pot of gold, visual gold, the Chinese gold, and the rainbow, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
So it's imagery like that that reflects and energizes your participants, right? I'll show you a few examples, then I'm going to get you guys to draw. Is that okay?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So other ways of using some, I got to share here again. Great. What are you seeing? Are you seeing the right screen?
We are seeing your child, and I think that's Irene. That's the one we are seeing.
Here we go.
Oh, yes. What's
Okay,
possible?
so here's a couple in training and facilitation. This is the one I just showed you, this pot of gold harvesting. Here is conversation on what's possible. You know, is it the metaphor of diving deep under the sea to find the treasure? And then, you know, bubbles is a space, or the treasure is a space for you to add your comments. Or is possibility mean we're, you know, launching into outer space or new frontiers, mapping out, you know, those ideas of stars and so on? Or is it a garden metaphor? Here's perhaps the simplest visual template. On the left is a circle. What do I want to implement? What are my key takeaways? And on the right is you've captured that with the post-its and then harvested that visually.
Yeah.
Here's a simple template for consulting with a group, divergent convergent thinking. And it's a way to reflect that process, but also get groups to discuss how they would use visual tools to support that process. Okay, let's do, let me stop that. And are you ready to do a drawing? Ready to do some drawing? So I invite you to, as always here, what you're doing, to sketch out. So I'm just going to draw my version of a simple face, right? The nose, the eyes, simple mouth, something like that. And draw a nice arm coming out. So this is my version of the starman. And then his arm is a little box. And this arm is some dashed dotted lines for what's possible. And up here, I draw a little gift. And I'm going to draw, let me shift my camera a little bit. Can you see that? Those legs are a little bit short. So what I'm going to talk about is the last 3 days of our Visuals at Work. I want to again acknowledge you guys for the work, Piyush, Agalia, Natasha, and what are some of the new tools and takeaways? That I've learned. And certainly some great, you know, distinctions on drawing, right? Icons and faces, and the way she talked about hierarchy yesterday from Williman, and from Agalia, you know, some great distinctions on storyboarding, mental models, and frameworks and metaphors a little bit. So some tools and takeaways. What are my personal gifts is creativity and drawing and storytelling and so on. What do I see as possible for me? At the end of this series, what am I taking and how am I applying it? I could see that I could be, you know, engaging more with groups and facilitation. So in a while, I'm going to invite you to do this for yourself, take a drawing for yourself. And at the end of this Visuals at Work, these 10 days, what are some of the action steps that I am going to take? So what we've created here, I need to make it clear here, right? Here are my gifts and strengths. In this section, here's my vision and what's possible. Tools, takeaway, and action steps. So I did this in, maybe the order was here, number 1. 2 is my own personal reflection. And then what are some action steps? 3. And 4, what is possible? And if I wanted to, I put this little heart here, and I can also reflect on this question is what resonated with me? What resonated with me? So what I would like to invite you to do for the next maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes, let's say, is to create something like this for yourself as a reflection tool, as a visual template. First of all, you're drawing it, and then fill it in with your own reflections and insights. So here is 5 different points, right? You don't have to work on all 5 of them. Maybe just start with what are the top takeaways, right? What do I see as possible for me? My gifts and strength is a way for you to contextualize what you're learning to what you're already doing, right? And as a way to introduce yourself to someone else. Does that make sense? So you can change this. This is my little drawing. You can make this drawing anything you want. You can make this a tool bag. You can change this as you like. But I've just shown you a really simple demonstration using the visual frameworks that we've been showing here. It's a space for you to capture your thoughts. Okay? Can we see that? Okay? Great. I'll also show the slide that has the image on it here. There we go. So it's a reflection on your experience in visuals at work so far, day 4. And you may add to this, as we go. So draw this or a similar template, fill it in with your own personal insights and reflections. So let's say about 4 minutes. And then we'd like to hear a few sharing. So 4 minutes, what are your reflections? everybody okay? Very
Yep.
quiet.
Yeah, we
Any
are.
drawing music in the background?
After this exercise, it will be a fantastic idea to show your drawings. So open your
Yes.
camera and then show it on the camera. And Tim, you can close the screen share so we have more picture on the screen. I mean, more audio videos on the screen.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
You can switch on your camera, participants, and show us how you have drawn. This can be our picture moment as well. This
Very good.
mine.
Very nice. Is there anyone who'd like to share? Maybe we could hear one or two sharing. That would be nice, because then you're using it to present and organize, and you can see how you use this as a trainer or facilitator. Anyone with a hand up? Maybe we can hear a few.
So I'm not a trainer, but I can tell you this has really inspired me, and it's really nice. So this is the first time I know somebody is telling me, and I'm sort of putting it on the drawing form. So what I've written here is, what are my gifts? The ability to connect idea with practical implementation. What's my vision?
Nice.
To create a visual language for technology folks. They're very serious. They don't make the good language for, so that's my vision. Obviously, the tools which I've learned is the collaborative tools, as well as Miro is another tool. And another thing is how to create templates. That's another one which what resonates me is, when you are in doubt, draw it out. I think that's a clear message everybody is giving, and keep it simple. And what's the next step I'm saying is practice, 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 and make it a part of every meeting. That's a key takeaway for me.
Nice.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Practice, make it a part of every meeting.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So how do you want to take it further, Tim? Can we have some questions and then talk about this, or is there anything that
sure.
you might want to cover? Yeah, because I have a few questions already. Okay, someone is asking, we learned from our failures. What mistakes have you made you can share in facilitation through storytelling? So they're asking actually for wartime stories. Is there anything that we can learn from your experience? Yeah.
I guess, what would I say?
I think it's more about, sorry, Tim, it's more about where have you made mistakes or failures in the early days, and what comes to mind that we need to consider. Because often we remember the mistakes we make.
Yes.
If you've got any, you might not have any.
Yeah. There's nothing that jumps out with that. I mean, I guess when we use an image, it always creates engagement. Maybe sometimes the image takes over the image takes over the tool, meaning that people get so excited about the picture and the story that is suggesting that they might lose track of what they're actually there to do. So I've noticed sometimes that could be a point of distraction. So that's, I don't know if that's much of a mistake. And another thing is simplifying. Another lesson I would learn is being very clear on the questions. And again, like less is more. You know, you're not creating it's not a strategic image or an outcome that you need to show everything. It's just a space for them to think. I mean, the simplest, template, as I said, could just be a circle with a question in it, or a circle divided in half, and there's 2 questions or 4. So simplifying, less is more, and being clear on the questions, and also finding the right metaphor. I've heard other facilitators that have shared examples where, gosh, I have to think about it, but they've used, I think, the metaphor of the elephant in the room, and somehow that wasn't appropriate to the culture, so it didn't work. But the magic of these things is you draw them ahead of time. If you're working with a number of groups, you would print them out, and it's just paper, so you can redo it. I've redone templates on the spot with clients. Maybe one question isn't right. I just, I cover that with, we bring these address labels, white sticky labels, cover it, and write the new question on it. It's pretty simple. It's made by hand. It's easy to adapt and improvise a little bit. Yeah.
And there is one more question. Do all clients respond well to visual templates approach, or do some feel that they have seen it all before? So what is the response like when you've dealt with clients?
Yeah, some they've seen it before, but I think what's a differentiating factor is if you sketch something there for them, you customize it, even though something like this, an iceberg metaphor, people would have seen, this bridging template, it's not unique. Clients would have seen that somewhere, but when you make it for them. Like I've used this in a number of ways, and I've, let's say, I should have a set slide, but where we are now, how do we get there? And this becomes our mountain of strategy. What are the three big initiatives in mountain of this year, and what's the next year? And so you're customizing their story. You're telling their story through a visual narrative, and it's something you're familiar with, but you're customizing it for them. So they love that, and even though they've seen it somewhere, it's also new for them. And make it new for them.
Right. And the final one question is, how do you invite people to draw at the workshop? What do you do when they when they don't know how to draw? I mean, they respond like that. What is that you would do?
So you that's a great question.
Yes.
And you guys would know this, Piyush and Nagalia and Natasha and other visual thinkers. Whenever you get a group of adults in the room, 9 out of 10 of them will say, I can't draw, but your job is to change from that to this. I can't to I can, and you do that through. Yesterday, Williman did some good examples, I think, for demonstrations of how to draw simple icons imagery. So start with the basic shapes, right? You just get them to draw, right? This circle, square, triangle, cloud shape, line. And then you put it together. I think William did a square, and triangle becomes the email. Circle and triangle becomes the money bag. So and you demonstrate and get them to draw and feel that confidence. And then you can start sketching out, simple icons and metaphors. Grow, it's like a tree, right? And so on, an iceberg. And just you're demonstrating this simple skill of getting people confident in doing that. And then have them talk about, okay, what are we here to do today? We're here to, clarify the new leadership team and the directions. And so what does leadership mean? What does it look like? Draw a symbol of that. What does it look like now? What do you want it to look like in the future? What's in the way? So you could draw 3 simple pictures, and you just got them warmed up by doing a little hands-on demo like this.
Great.
So managing
Thank you so much. Yeah, get
fear to drawing.
True. And there is one more question again. Sometimes when I use vocablo, I feel I'm an imposter. Do you think we should develop our own style, or it is better to sacrifice it? The important thing is to communicate, I know. So do you
The
go
style?
for your
The drawing style, like the vocablo style? Yeah. It's a preference, really. It's what you feel comfortable with. The style I've learned is this Starman. That's what I know. And yesterday, William showed you, I don't know what her name for it is, but it's like that with the muscle, right? It's a different look, a different style. And vocablo is different than that, I think, but similar in some ways. It's something like that. It's kind of boxy. So it's a preference, really. Play with it, what you feel comfortable with. The key is, that the drawing becomes an enabler. It's not about the drawing. It's what the drawing helps you to do. It's not about the drawing. It's about the idea. Yes.
Definitely, completely agree with it. I think further more questions, Tim, if they can, message you to you on LinkedIn or Instagram in the Art of Awakening, that would be great. Yeah, and if there is something, right now we will just have a little bit of feedback for today's session. I'm just posting the link to the feedback here in the chat. We do have a generous amount of feedback for the past 2 days, but we would want you to encourage and do more, because really this keeps helping us understand our speakers or understand the learning better. You could have seen the improvement. So just let us know through this feedback. We'll give you a minute to fill this, and then finally we'll have Natasha's work posted. She's already done with her work, so we will have what she has for Tim today. And then
I'll show one more.
Yes, please.
I'll show one more, just 3 more quick slides to show after you do the feedback.
Yes, please. Yeah.
And while you're doing feedback, have you seen these tools?
Okay. No.
These are
I've seen tools, but not in this form.
You guys will have seen the facilitators,
Yes.
right? The Neuland markers. But these are sticky notes that are, the shape of an avatar, a person, and a circle. This is what I use for the agenda. This is a great tool to use for when you get people to check in, right? To draw their own little person here, write their name, perhaps, or just do what they want to it, and then check them in, or map out how long have you been with your organization, right? Get a sense of a timeline of the group. Especially that's good if there's a lot of turnaround, or there's some changes in leadership, to get a sense of who's there. Sorry, I'm distracting you.
No, you're not. You're definitely not. Thank you so much. It helps. Personally, it has helped me a lot. I know that in future, when I'm carrying another facilitation, I'm going to use a lot of this technique. Definitely. Personally, it helps me a lot, and thank you so much. Of course, I do see comments keep coming up. And one question I would want to answer is, Tim is also a live scribe, but here today he's talking more in terms of templates, because that is what the question and the workshop is pretty much that's what we announced, that we would do it based on templates. But if you have anything in terms of scribing or anything, please do reach out to him in LinkedIn or Instagram. Anything, I think. Natasha, you have something? Okay.
I'll just share this quick link to, there's our book if you want to check it out, The World of Visual Facilitation. And I'm sure Piyush has a link somewhere he can share with you. And here's another, gift that I want to give you. And I'll send this in the link or for Piyush to share with you. this is it's a personal goal setting. And the metaphor there, of course, is a hot air balloon lift. If you've ever been to one of those events, it's inspiring. And the idea is you write your goal onto a hot air balloon.
Okay.
What is a big goal? And maybe what is some of the other goals? And then in the foundation of the ground is my strengths, what I'm grateful for, support I need, things I want to let go of. And then in the future is what's the vision that I see in the world. So you're creating a story for your goals. And I wrote down my goals in a similar way in 2011. And my goal was to go to the IFBP conference, the International Forum of Visual Practitioners. That year it was in Honolulu, Hawaii. I wrote down my goal, I wrote it down. And then I wrote down what's the amount of money, which translated to the amount of jobs and training that I needed to do at the time. I wrote that down. I did a left brain, write it down, the words. And then I drew, after that, then I drew a picture, something like what you see there, a picture. And I looked at it every day to energize that picture and that story through the image. So that's just to share with you that. So put your ideas down in pictures. It energizes you to the future that you can create. And here's how you can connect with us. And, you know, Art Awakening is myself and my wife, and we run this together. We do training across Asia. We do a workshop, the Visual Facilitation Lab. It's now the Virtual Visual Facilitation Lab. It's 2 days of visual thinking tools and facilitation best practices. We're developing other programs now that are virtual programs, visual storytelling, visual marketing, and all of those things. So there you can connect with us.
Perfect.
And my last thought is remember that every drawing is a gift. Go and bring your gift to the world.
Thank you so much. Such an insightful.
Thank you. I'm going to stop.
That would make a great picture. Can you show it again? I'm taking a screenshot. Yeah, wait a second. Ah, yes.
Yes.
That's my hashtag, by the way.
Okay, fantastic. Got it.
Keep giving your gifts, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
More gifts.
Natasha, can we see the
Can
scribe
you
for
share
the
your
day?
scribe, Natasha?
Yes, yes. We are all waiting for it. Yay.
So I'm with you in spotlight.
Hey.
Wow. Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. So we will
Very
be
nice.
also
Thank you.
sharing.
What a gift.
Also, I was like thinking about the metaphor part you were saying when you have to have a right metaphor. I remember in the book, The World of Visual Facilitation, I had read about this metaphor someone had used, slaying the dragon, and it was not right because it was in a very, because they consider dragon to be
yeah, in China, right? Of course, yeah. It's one of their signs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Oh, all right.
So that was like you need to be always aware of the
cultural.
The cultural context, yeah.
Exactly. But the book is really good. I have read like almost everything. Only few pages are left, but it's a really awesome book.
Yeah, true.
It has everything, like from basic drawing, coloring to digital. In fact, like if you're virtually you want to have it, it's one of the best books to have.
Super. Thank you so much,
It's also good
Natasha.
for getting in shape.
Yes, and that book is so. I mean, I think we have posted a link of it here, and if anyone would want to purchase it, that's still there. You can just go back to the link and click and purchase it. Fine. Thank you, everyone. So
thank you, everybody.
Feedback will also form. Done. We will go for this moment. Shall we?
Yes.
Yes. Let's do the.
And for all those who have made live scribes, as you already know, post on Instagram. Agalya will tell in detail, but let's have a picture before. And everyone.
¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo te va? Comento que le firmaré a Lucía lo de la estadía.
On our mics as well, and say hooray.
Al otro par de
Yay.
creo que debe ser un esfuerzo mayor.
Keep doing it and taking pictures.
Excelente día, abrazos.
We see some Spanish as well. We hear some Spanish. Okay, cool. I've taken the pictures.
Thank you, everyone. So for all those who have done your sketches, please feel free. I mean, you've been posting throughout, and thank you so much for that. And we would encourage you to keep posting it. So we repost in ours, and let's make this a big visual festival by itself. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah.
doing
Thank
this.
you. Thanks a lot. And
Thanks for joining,
tomorrow we
everybody.
have just a minute. For tomorrow we have
60
Rahul Andrews who will be talking about design thinking and visual thinking. So yeah, please feel free to, just support us just like always. Come back tomorrow at 6 o'clock Indian Standard Time and 2:30 Amsterdam time, or whichever part you live in the world, your own time. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That's too good. Yeah.
Cool. So,
Too good, too good, too good.
Bye.
thank you.
So we stay back a bit, Tim.
Tim, yeah, just for a
Okay.
couple, 10 minutes or so.
Just flipping through to see
Yeah.
who's here.
There are
Go
more
ahead
than
and have a chance to
participants.
do that.
That's both of us doing it faster. You and I, Piyush.
Yeah, I can see.
It's just going off.
You're removing, right?
Yeah.
Some people are not going.
I know.
I'm putting in
Okay.
waiting room.
Yeah, perfect.
So now we are 7.
How come that happens? I mean, they're not removed. They're not the.
Yeah, I kept them on in waiting room, but somehow they are not getting out of waiting room. Maybe something, but at least they are not here.
Yeah.
We are only 4. So Tim, wow, fantastic.
Wow. I mean, it's so much content, and like I said, I'm really going to keep using these. A lot of good metaphors, especially the air balloon. Never thought of it before.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And the curry factor.
Yeah, and the curry.
Yeah.
Curry.
Well, I mean, they're just meant to be examples to give you a sense of how you can teach something, and then also use it to facilitate a model, build a template around that story. Yeah. So those are examples we show in the workshop, and then we get people to create their own template, but that's takes more time than we sort of allocated.
I also think that the bootcamp is proceeding coincidentally in a very synchronized way. Initially, Williamin told Agalia introduced the storytelling part as the bigger picture. Then Williamin told us how to draw small things. Now you told us how to storytell. And from tomorrow onwards, now we are mixing storytelling. For example, Rahul will be mixing design thinking plus storytelling. I will be mixing digital marketing plus storytelling. So now we're actually going deeper into it and making it more useful. So coincidentally, it's happening.
True. And what do you think about it, Tim, for the day? I mean, how did you find it, the whole discussion that we had?
I think it's okay. I like the candid style. I mean, I put a lot of preparation into thinking about the flow and so on, because usually when I do this in a workshop, it's contextualized into what we've been already doing, ahead of time and what we're going to do later. So this is now putting it into this 90-minute session. I had to sort of rethink how all this makes sense and what would be the right. So I tried to put together a reasonable flow, but also leave space for people to dialogue, because that's important, I think, for the engagement.
Yeah.
And I think we had some good questions.
Yes.
I don't know, surprised what happened with the slide sharing,
I
and then
mean,
also the camera.
that's okay. Technical glitches always happen. You can, people will be just convinced with that. It's not even a problem. But I like the way you went personal and then went back, scribed something, then showed something. The mix of conversation. It's very nice. It's very interactive. Made it very interactive.
It was a very good session.
Yeah.
You mean the mix of that of showing something here and then having some kind of
Yeah, and
too
having
noisy.
something in your hand also, or certain things like
Yeah.
you taking away the post-it and showing it and putting it back where it fits. And then when it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
to a very solid content, switching into presentation for a bit and then coming back. So whatever you're teaching in a very authentic form, I would say, because you're going and drawing something coming back. But when you just have
Yeah.
to explain whatever has done in the background, what you've done in the background, which you show through slide. So I really liked the way you played with it.
Okay.
Really nice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Also, I
Yeah.
think Bala had a question. He was asking, I think in the beginning, that Agalya, can Tim share the presentation? It's in the
Yeah, but the
in the
recordings are,
start he was
the
asking.
recordings are shared, so they can always check the
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I also observed that the last two sessions have been when the speakers are standing, and initial two were the speakers sitting. So I think when you are standing, by default, I think it's a human psychology that people think that you are taking more ownership. So at least I'll be trying.
Yeah.
I try to stand at my session.
He'll be standing and typing like this.
Yeah. It's more
Yes.
energetic and more energized.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
When you move a lot, it just makes people feel more lively. That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I hope I wasn't too much like this. Or...
No, you weren't. That's what it didn't look like you were hiding anything. You're actually showing, going, drawing, and coming back and showing a lot of things. It felt a little bit of more conversational than what any of us did so far. Yeah.
Personally, this was more special to me, this session, because we have always in the back of the mind, team always considered you as the part of the team, because the whole idea started with you. If probably you would have said a blank no, then we would have been demotivated. But because we knew that you were with us, almost we knew even before you actually said yes, we almost assumed that you were with us. With that assumption, we went ahead and invited other people. With some of the other speakers, we already took your name. That team is with us. So that was a kind of gray which we played. But because we always consider you as a team, I want to pinpoint a few things which you, according to your board. So I'm telling you from the organizer's point of view, this picture, because many of them might have drawn as a learner. For me, the vision which we were all together thinking was to empower people. So can someone who doesn't know also be empowered to draw? So that was the vision. What resonated was, at least personally, was with me is the common passion which you, me, other drawers are sharing here. And that's why I think we are not taking, the load is not coming to us at all. Like ask Agalya, Nitasha and me. We don't feel that the load is coming to me. I receive so many personal messages and without even me asking, telling that you can do this in Zoom and you have this idea, that idea. So I think that the whole family is taking the load and they're all okay with small errors, and nobody is judging, nobody is trying to be a super perfectionist. So I think the common passion is resonating a lot, I can feel. And the action step
The community is very kind to us.
Yeah. And the action step which I've drawn here is the connect. So this was our experiment to connect people. And now I think if we connect more by having some more events, or maybe any other creative idea where we can connect more people, bringing people together already has, some energy around it. So I was thinking around more connections, like how you connected people with your book. And now we are connecting people through this boot camp. I'm already in a thought process that what else we can do to connect people. So that was my my storyboard for this one.
Nice. Thank you.
And when I had met Tim last time, he had explained how he uses these templates with the clients. I was like, it's such an insightful thing. I never thought about it till I met you. It's something I think everybody will, it's a takeaway for everybody. Like always have a template in your hand when you are talking to your client. It helps them to understand what we do.
And also the idea of make a post-it of each of the elements and then make them the template. That felt very flexible. I think we loved it totally. Thank you so much.
Tim, I have a personal question with you. Like maybe it take 30 seconds or 40 seconds. I didn't ask you in the session, because this is more business oriented. I wanted to ask you that one business which I understand around this is, of course, training. When you go and train people, you empower them to draw. But what are the other business opportunities in this area? Like, what kind of services you offer to your clients, which is a little more stretched, maybe for 10 to 15 days, or maybe for 1 month? Or are there none of these services? Everyone is doing training, or what are the other business opportunities here?
What are we doing? The work we do with clients?
Yeah, apart from just training them, what are the other services or help you give to your clients?
I mean, when we do facilitation, but my preference with doing facilitation is to work in collaboration with someone else. So you have someone who's leading the room, and they're in charge of, they're managing the client and the dialogue. And then I get to, we do scribing, but we also create tools for them. We help co-design some of the processes. And there's times when I can, take the lead and using something that the group has created together, or I've created, as a design tool for them, then I'm leading that, or I'm teaching that, or I'm organizing this tool. And so we kind of work in tandem with someone else. And I mean, that's a co-facilitator role, or that's like a thought partner. I like to see it like a thought partner.
Visual partner.
Work with,
a visual partner.
A visual partner. We work with clients doing strategic maps, strategic visualizations. I had a few of those I was thinking to show today, but I thought it's maybe too many. It's a bit too, it's a tangent of templates and stories, but it's, so it's helping them to figure things out. Like, there's been conversations now on the future of education. They've been working with a school system and helping them to 3 conversations, mapping that part 1, part 2, part 3, and how do they, then articulate that story throughout the organization with leaders and with stakeholders and parents and kids. So that's strategic narratives or strategic visualization. It's like navigating change. There's some work that we do. We haven't done this now post-COVID because it's really in-person work, but I think we could do it. Everything else is going online. We just have our whiteboard. But it's helping them to come up with a narrative for change. So you can have templates for, I shared a little bit of that in the case study. In the things in the room, you have a template for what they're going to work on, and help them talking about where we are, where we want to go, and what's the story for change, and what's that